Hi there. This is Sasha the Catalyst, founder and author at sashaclark.com. Welcome back. Welcome back to Seekers Week, where seekers from all over the globe come together to approach the text of Scripture and take a peek behind the veneer, their favorite translation. Our hope is to foster love and understanding that will transcend culture and custom to empower anyone who loves the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to have a meaningful relationship with him and his chosen people, the Jews. This week, we are on a journey through what most seventh grade Catholic boys would call the raunchiest book of the Bible, the Song of Songs, pronounced Shir Ha Shirim in Hebrew. This is part 6 of 7 in our study and of the greatest romantic operetta ever. If you are just joining us, welcome. Be sure to go back to parts 1 through 5 to get some background information. As we've discussed before, the Song of Songs is actually 6 songs with the same theme, like an operetta or a musical. My interpretation is that each of the songs represents a different segment of Jewish history, and today we'll explore the 5th song of Shir Ha Shirim. Hopefully you have your backpack ready to go with a copy of Song of Songs in Hebrew and English, because interlinear is best. A Hebrew lexicon, and you're welcome to go over to my blog to get a link for my favorite Hebrew lexicon, a basic understanding of PaRDeS, which we covered in the introduction video, a heart for God, a sense of adventure, and an open mind. And yes, I did just realize on this video that I used open mind twice on all of the other videos, and I'm not going back to edit it. So sorry, you're just gonna have to live with my redundancy. Okay, Ani ledodi vedodi li. I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine. Song of Songs, chapter 6, verse 3. Again, this is probably the most well-known verse in the whole entire book of Song of Songs, Shir Ha Shirim. We wrapped up song number 4 with Shlomo prophesying that a leader from the nations would assist the Jews in returning to God. We saw that turning point and the renewal of their wedding vows. One could say that this is that pivotal moment when the rose finally bursts forth into a glorious display of color and fragrance. That moment when the bride realizes what's at stake and makes a decision to grow right where she's planted instead of pining over everyone else's greener pastures. No, really, it's true. In times when the Jewish people try to blend in and be just like everyone else, anti-Semitism rises. Instead, when we embrace the calling before us to be a distinct people, it is then and only then that we can fulfill the vision of God of being a light to the nations. Remember that prism analogy earlier in our series? Well, what would happen if I tried to paint a Catholic symbol on the side of the prism? It would block the light from coming through, right? That's what happens when the Jewish people attempt to assimilate. We have to make a decision to be comfortable with the distinction of Jew and non-Jew. I know it goes against our human nature, and I'm sorry if it's uncomfortable. I'm sorry. It does go against our human nature, but it cannot be any other way. And the reason it goes against our human nature is because we tend to fear what is different from ourselves. We naturally, as humans, are inclined to fear what is different. But we have to be okay with being different, dressing different, acting different. And we have to be secure enough within ourselves to know where we stand with God and that we are enough. The love of God is available in full measure to us all, whether you're Jewish or not. Being Jewish is a matter of a distinctively different role in the drama, not better, not worse, just a different responsibility. Remember, Shlomo had literally 1,000 wives, and he loved and provided for them all. But only one was mentioned as his beloved in Shir Ha Shirim, due to her distinct role in the big picture. Today, we continue Shlomo's prophecy. Let's see if you can guess which time period he's referring to. Clue number 1. My dove, my undefiled, is but one. She is the only one of her mother. She is the choice one of her that bore her. The daughters saw her and called her happy. Yes, the queens and the concubines, they all praised her. Song of Songs, chapter 6, verse 9. So the king speaking, when he says that she's the only one of her mother, again, this is referring to the nation born from the womb of the faith of the patriarchs and matriarchs. The daughters, queens, and concubines saw her, and she was happy, and then they praised her. Some of our sages actually speculate that it wasn't the lack of Torah observance that caused the destruction of the first temple, but that we had lost our joy in doing the Torah. God says in Deuteronomy 28, chapter 28, verses 47 through 48. Because you did not serve the Lord your God with joy and gladness of heart in all your abundance, you will serve your enemies. The Lord will send against you in famine, thirst, nakedness, and destitution. He will place an iron yoke on your neck until he's destroyed you. So we see faithfulness is important, but joy and happiness while being faithful is the key. And how do we have joy? I'm so glad you asked. We dance, we sing, we smile, we clap our hands. We make the commandments beautiful and savory with our choice of foods and decorations. When we were young and dating God, He was responsible for arousing our curiosity and arousing our awe. But once we're committed to Him and mature, we must often arouse ourselves in gratitude, awe, and love, even at times pouring out our worship and our words and our deeds until our emotions finally come into alignment with our knowledge of what's right. And when in Jewish history do we see the nations seeing a happy Jewish people reunited with her God and they praised her? Clue number 2, I went down into the garden of nuts to look at the green plants of the valley to see whether the vine had budded and the pomegranate were in flower. Before I was aware, my soul set me upon the chariots of my princely people. Song of Songs, chapter 6, verses 11 through 12. So the king goes to check and see how the rebuild's going and the return of his people to the land. Is there fruit on the vine? A vineyard is often a remez or an allegory for a bet midrash, which in English means like a house of study, or a yeshiva in scripture. So when in Jewish history was there a vineyard or a yeshiva established in the land of Israel? Clue number 3. Return, return, O Shulamite, return, return, that we may look upon you. What will you see in the Shulamite? As it were a dance of two companies. Song of Songs 7, verse 1. The choir does a nice job of bridging both the bride and the king in this verse. First, they address the bride. Return, come back that we may look upon you. Then the choir shifts attention to the king and says, well, you went to examine her progress. What will you see in her? You can't really tell who they're talking to in the English form of this verse, but that's why it's so important to look beyond the veneer of the English into the true grain of the Hebrew. The verb to see in this verse is in the second person masculine form, so it's okay to assume that they were addressing the king. As it were, a dance of two companies. Now the choir is saying, aw, they're so cute. Look at them dancing together. Don't they make a handsome couple? Clue number 4 is actually 2 parts. So part 1, let us get up early to the vineyards, the bride says. Let us see whether the vine has budded, whether the vine blossom be open, and the pomegranates be in flower. There will I give you my love. See, she's kind of echoing what they're saying, and she's arousing herself, echoing back what she's heard, waking early to get up to the house of study, to the yeshiva, and to study. There is where she will give her love to him. Part 2, the second verse, I would lead you and bring you into my mother's house, that you might instruct me. I would cause you to drink of spiced wine, of the juice of my pomegranate. Song of Songs, chapter 8, verse 2. Ah, that you might instruct me. The word for instruct in this verse is talmidani, which has the same root as lamad, which happens to be related to the word Talmud, which is a companion to the Torah, and talmidim, which means student, or as we would say in English, a disciple. So when in Jewish history do the Jewish people begin to add houses of study and discipleship as part of their worship? Any guesses? If you guessed the period of time between the return of the Jews from the exile through the men of the Great Assembly and the Zugats, then you were right. As an aside, it is popular in Christianity to call the period of time between Micah and Matthew the silent years. And this is just not true. I mean, unless you're going to censor out all the great rabbis over 500 years. Was actually a glorious period of renewal and relationship between the Jewish people and God, as well as a time of relative peace with the nations. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, why should you awaken or stir up love until it pleases? So here's our phrase again, only this time it's in the form of a question. Why should you awaken or stir up love until it pleases? Why? It's just so beautiful to watch it unfold. Song 5 covers a wonderful period of partnership between the Jews and God, and it would seem that I was wrong. Shlomo kind of called it so far, right? But what about the 6th song? How far can one guy see into the future under the direction of God himself? Does he see all the way to the end of time? And what about the daughters of Jerusalem? The 5 songs have really been hyper-focused on the Jews. I thought you said this operetta showed God's love for all the nations too. Well, you're right. Those are all great questions. You're going to have to join me next time to find out. Again, my name is Sasha, the Catalyst. I am the founder and author at sashaclark.com. Thank you so much for your time and attention. We really have covered a lot of ground in our short time together, and I hope that you found this series valuable. I hope and pray that you're making connections and seeing things you hadn't seen before, and in his strength, unearthing some beautiful gems. Of course, you are invited to continue to explore more along of course, you're invited to continue to explore more along the shore of the vast ocean of scripture with me and uncover even more buried treasure. Feel free to write me an email, send me a text, or hop on over to my website, sashaclark.com, and subscribe to my blog. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel and continue the journey of a lifetime together. Until we meet again, shalom.